Hello Cube fans. So the other day I jumped in the car, tried to start it, and it did that. It took quite a while, quite a bit of cranking before it actually caught. And it's a bit slow in responding to the throttle. So driving it a bit, the engine management light came on, and I plugged in my little El Cheapo diagnostics reader, which doesn't talk to a Nissan Cube. So I had to borrow a more expensive one from a friend, and it came up with crankshaft sensor being the issue. So I've got a spare engine, and I went to have a look on that to see if I could find where the crankshaft sensor is located. Having looked all around the crankshaft area of the engine on this side and the other side, I'm not going to bother to move the engine, but front, both sides, no sign of any crankshaft sensor. So then I had a look at the car itself, and that's when I discovered that there isn't a crankshaft sensor on the crankshaft so much as, see that little green top plug over there? That is a sensor which seems to read off the flywheel. So, to the best of my knowledge, that must be the crankshaft sensor. So, just to give you a better idea of where it's located, look at your Nissan badge and your filler cap of your radiator. Draw a straight line between those, roughly halfway and slightly to the left, and down there. Little green top plug. So we're going to pull that out, replace it, and see what happens. Just for the fun of it, here's one of my spare cubes. It's a bit easier to see on this one because I've got part of the engine removed. So it's this one over here that we're going to remove. You can see I've already taken the bolt out. It's a 10mm bolt. So with a long reach socket, you can just undo it from up here. You don't have to take half the engine off in order to actually get to it. In this case, I'm doing some other work to the car, so that's why half the engine's been removed. But yeah, that's the little sensor over there that we're going to remove and swap around and see what happens. Right, so there's the hole that the sensor fits into. On the donor vehicle, absolute doddle, just slid right out. On this car, absolute nightmare. It was well and truly jammed in there. I needed a pair of long reach pliers to get down there in order to pull on it, grabbing it from the top. Pieces of the top snapped off. I had to get in there with a screwdriver and try and wedge it from underneath. The sides were all oxidized from the aluminium bell housing, and it was just sticking into the bell housing. It was an absolute nightmare to get out. So I would suggest when putting the new one back in, just pop a little bit of, just a very light layer of grease around the sides so that it doesn't stick in there permanently. In my case, this is just a temporary loaner. I just want to make sure that the sensor does the job. If the car then runs properly, then the sensor is going to go back into the donor vehicle and a brand new sensor will be put into this car. This is my daily driver, so I'd rather fit brand new parts in it than second-hand parts. But for the time being, I just want to make sure that this is the crankshaft sensor and that I've got the right one. I mean, in my humble opinion, as a DIY amateur mechanic, that looks like a crankshaft sensor to me. If you look at the ones they're selling on eBay, that's what they look like. So I'm pretty sure that I've got the right sensor. But yeah, we'll see what happens once I've installed it and see how the car runs. So yeah, I'm just going to put a very light coating of grease on there, slide it back in, reconnect it, and we'll see how the car runs. Back with you in a moment. Okay, so I know I said I was going to install it before I came back to you, but I just wanted to show you what it looks like with the grease on it. This is what I mean by a light coating of grease. You don't want to go completely ape and slather grease all over it. That might affect its operation. So really just very light coating like that. And of course, what I forgot to mention is make sure you put a coating of grease on this little rubber seal as well, just so that seals up nicely into the hole. Also, just I mean, this is not really relevant if you're using a brand new part, but if you are going to use a second-hand part like I've done, it's worth giving it a quick spray with something like carb cleaner, just so that it's yeah, get rid of any dirt and debris that might be sitting on it, and again, just to make sure that it operates at its best. So right, I am now going to reinstall it, and in fact, this is something that is so easily done. I can probably do it on camera rather than off camera. Yeah, there you go. That's in place. Now I've just got to get the rubber seal in. Yep, that's flush. The rubber seal's in. So it was as simple as that. That's the 10mm retaining bolt. Pop that in there. No, I'm lying to you. That is not the 10mm retaining bolt. What I did to make my life a bit easier, so I just removed this steel bracket over here, so that gets in the way of putting your hand down there. I removed that steel bracket, and this short bolt is for that. The other 10mm bolt that we need is actually that one, which you can see is slightly longer, and that is the retaining bolt for there. So I'll just tighten that up, and I'll be back with you in a moment. Okay, so that is the sensor tightened down, the bolts back in there. I have plugged the cable back on, and I have put the bracket back in place, the air intake pipe in place, and let's see what happens. Well, that's a massive improvement. It started on the first crank rather than having to crank 5 or 6 times. And I've got instantaneous response on the accelerator. The engine management light is of course still on. That now needs to be cleared using an OBD reader. If you look over here, just beneath where your keys go in, this little panel here, you pull that out, there is your OBD plug, and I'm going to try using one of these Bluetooth connectors and upload the software onto my mobile phone or my tablet, but that will be a separate video. As I say, I have a little, I think it's called a Top Don 500. Could be a Top Don 5000, something like that. I think I paid like 15 odd quid on eBay for it. And yeah, it won't talk to this car. The one I borrowed from my friend does talk to the car. It's a fantastic little unit. It's a launch, I can't remember the model number. It's a launch something or the other, and it is 250 quid, which I really can't afford. So yeah, join me for the next video, and we'll see if we can manage to get the phone to talk to the car for OBD instead of having to go out and borrow or buy a 250 quid reader. I hope you found that video useful, and as always, thank you very much for watching.